The sound of tearing paper cut through the ambient noise of Gate 17 like a gunshot. Maya watched, frozen, as the flight attendant's manicured hands ripped her first-class boarding pass clean down the middle. The two pieces fluttered to the ground between them, settling on the polished airport floor like wounded birds. "You belong in the back," the woman said, her voice loud enough to turn heads throughout the boarding area. She wasn't whispering. She wanted an audience. Maya Thompson was 38 years old, and in her 2 decades of professional life, she had learned to recognize the subtle language of exclusion. The slight pause before someone shook her hand. The surprised tone when she introduced herself as Dr. Thompson in academic settings. The way security guards tracked her movements in upscale stores while white shoppers browsed freely. But this wasn't subtle. Standing at the gate of Skyward Airlines Flight 286 from Chicago to Atlanta, with her destroyed boarding pass at her feet and a flight attendant glaring at her with undisguised contempt, Maya realized she had miscalculated. She had noticed the warning signs during check-in, the agent's double-take at her ID, the way she'd called over a supervisor to verify the ticket, but Maya had dismissed it. She was tired from 3 days of board meetings. She just wanted to get home. Now looking at the flight attendant's name tag, Jennifer Walsh, Senior Cabin Director, Maya understood that this woman had decided, somewhere between the jet bridge and this moment, that a black woman didn't belong in first class. "Excuse me?" Maya's voice was steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. Around them, other passengers slowed their boarding, phones already emerging from pockets and purses. Jennifer crossed her arms, her Skyward Airlines uniform crisp and authoritative. "Your ticket is invalid. I'm going to need you to step aside while I sort this out with my supervisor. My ticket was valid enough for your colleague at check-in?" Maya replied, keeping her tone level. She reached into her bag, pulling out her phone to display the digital boarding pass. "As you can see, Seat 2A. First class. Purchased 6 weeks ago." Jennifer barely glanced at the screen. "Digital passes can be manipulated. I need to see physical verification, which you no longer have." She gestured to the torn paper on the floor with a small, satisfied smile. The trap closed with surgical precision. By destroying the physical ticket, Jennifer had created exactly the scenario she wanted: a passenger without proper documentation who could now be removed at her discretion. Maya had been in Chicago for 3 days, though it felt like 3 months. The Skyward Airlines headquarters building, all glass and steel, had become simultaneously her prison and her throne. She had sat through 47 individual meetings. 47 conversations about operational efficiency, fleet modernization, union negotiations, and customer satisfaction metrics. 47 opportunities for the current executives to either impress her or reveal their fundamental unsuitability for the future she was about to create. The announcement wouldn't be made until Monday morning. Until then, she was simply Maya Thompson, consultant, traveling home to Atlanta on a ticket purchased under her personal credit card, rather than the corporate account that would have revealed too much too soon. She had watched Jennifer Walsh during the Atlanta to Chicago flight 3 days earlier. The woman had been perfectly pleasant to the white passengers in first class, downright doting on the elderly couple in 1A and 1B. But when a young Latino man had asked for a second drink, Jennifer's smile had frozen into something sharp and dismissive. When an Asian businesswoman had trouble with her seatback screen, Jennifer had sighed audibly before helping, making her inconvenience clear to everyone nearby. Maya had made a mental note then. Now that note was being written in permanent ink. "Ma'am," Maya said, her voice carrying across the gate area, "I have my confirmation number, my digital boarding pass, my ID, and my credit card showing the purchase. What additional verification do you need?" "I need you to step out of the boarding line." Jennifer's voice had taken on a harder edge. "You're holding up the other passengers." A man in his 50s, white, wearing an expensive suit, spoke up from behind Maya. "I saw her board with that ticket." "It was fine until you tore it up." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you not to interfere with airline personnel performing their duties." "Their duties?" The man shook his head. "This is ridiculous." But others in line weren't as supportive. A middle-aged woman in athleisure wear whispered to her companion, just loud enough to be heard. She probably used points that weren't hers. They do that, you know? Maya felt the familiar burn of rage and humiliation mixing in her chest. 20 years of education, of proving herself, of building a career that had taken her to the highest levels of corporate America. And here she stood, being publicly questioned about whether she had stolen a $400 plane ticket. Jennifer pulled out her radio. "Gate supervisor to 17, please. We have a passenger situation." The word situation hung in the air like an accusation. In the post-9/11's world of American air travel, situation was a loaded term. It suggested security risks, potential threats, the kind of passenger who needed to be handled by people with badges and authority. Maya's phone buzzed in her hand. A text from her executive assistant. Reminder. Press release goes out Monday 8 a.m. Conference call with board at 9. You'll need to be at HQ by 7. Monday morning. She would walk into the Skyward Airlines headquarters as the newly appointed CEO. Monday morning, the press release would announce that Maya Thompson, former Q of Horizon Aviation and one of the youngest executives to ever lead a major airline, would be taking the helm of a company that desperately needed her expertise. But right now, on Friday evening, she was just another black woman being told she didn't belong. The gate supervisor arrived. A thin man in his 30s with nervous energy and a name tag reading Bradley Chun, Operations Manager. Jennifer immediately launched into her explanation, painting Maya as aggressive, uncooperative, potentially fraudulent. Maya waited. She had learned patience the hard way. What Jennifer Walsh didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya had spent the last 3 days reviewing employee files. 47 employees would be terminated on Monday morning. Not for any single massive failure, but for the accumulated evidence of a toxic culture that had infected Skyward Airlines from the inside out. Jennifer Walsh's file had crossed her desk Wednesday afternoon. 7 passenger complaints in 18 months, 3 accusations of discriminatory behavior, 0 disciplinary action taken. That file was about to be closed permanently. The situation was escalating, voices rising, phones recording, and Maya stood at the center of it all, maintaining her composure while mentally cataloging every person, every action, every word that would matter in exactly 62 hours when she walked through those headquarters doors, with the full authority of her new position. If you're watching this story unfold and wondering how it's possible that this still happens in modern America, you're not alone. Sometimes the most shocking part isn't the injustice itself, but how easily people in positions of minor authority can weaponize that power against those they deem unworthy of respect. The question now wasn't whether Maya would get on this plane. The question was whether Jennifer Walsh understood that she had just torn up the boarding pass of the woman who would become her boss in exactly 3 days, and whether that realization would come soon enough to matter. Bradley Chun looked between Jennifer and Maya, his discomfort visible in the way he shifted his weight from foot to foot. He was clearly out of his depth, a mid-level manager thrust into a confrontation he hadn't been trained to handle. "Ma'am," he addressed Maya, not meeting her eyes, "if there's a question about your ticket validity, we can rebook you on the next available flight. We have seats in economy on the 8:15. Economy," Maya repeated, her voice flat. "I purchased first class. I checked in for first class. I have documentation for first class." "Which she destroyed," the suited man behind her interjected again, pointing at the torn paper still on the floor. Jennifer's face flushed with irritation. "Sir, final warning. Step back or I'll have you removed from this flight as well." The threat worked. The man fell silent, though he made a show of pulling out his phone and angling it toward Jennifer. "Bradley," Jennifer said, her voice taking on a saccharine sweetness that made Maya's skin crawl. "This passenger has been verbally aggressive since she approached the gate. I have concerns about allowing her to board in her current state. It was a masterful manipulation." With one sentence, Jennifer had reframed the entire encounter, transforming herself from aggressor to concerned professional worried about flight safety. Maya had seen this script before. She'd watched it play out in boardrooms, in academic conferences, in every professional space where power dynamics could be weaponized. The pattern was always the same. Provoke a reaction, then use that reaction as justification for whatever punishment you'd already decided to inflict. I haven't raised my voice once, Maya said calmly, looking directly at Bradley. I've answered every question, provided every document requested. The only aggression here has been the physical destruction of my property. Your property? Jennifer laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. That boarding pass belongs to Skyward Airlines. If I have reason to believe it's fraudulent, on what grounds? Maya interrupted, her voice still measured, but with an edge of steel that made Bradley flinch. My name matches my ID. My confirmation number is valid in your system. My seat assignment is confirmed. What, specifically, makes you believe this ticket is fraudulent? The silence that followed was answer enough. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. She knew she'd been caught in the circular logic of her own bias, and it made her angrier. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being accused of fraud without evidence, Maya replied. Yet here we are. A woman in her 60s, black, wearing a church hat and carrying a Bible, stopped next to Maya. Baby, I saw the whole thing. She tore up your ticket for no reason. That's not right. Ma'am, please keep moving, Jennifer snapped. I'm a paying passenger too, the woman said firmly. And I'm telling this young man, she gestured to Bradley, that I witnessed this entire incident. That girl, she pointed at Jennifer, has been rude and discriminatory. And if Skyward Airlines doesn't handle this properly, my church group of 47 members will be flying with someone else from now on. 47. The number hit Maya like a sign from the universe. Bradley's radio crackled. Chun, what's the status? We're showing a 15-minute delay on 286. The pressure was mounting. Airlines measured success in on-time departures, and every minute of delay cost money and created cascading problems throughout the system. Bradley was caught between diffusing the situation quickly and doing the right thing, and Maya could see in his face which way he was leaning. Listen, Bradley said, his voice taking on a pleading quality. We can get you on the next flight, first class, with a travel voucher for your trouble. $500. That's more than fair. Fair would be honoring the ticket I already purchased, Maya said. Fair would be disciplining your employee for destroying airline property and discriminating against a passenger. Jennifer scoffed. Discriminating? Please. You people always play that card when you don't get your way. The mask had slipped. The careful corporate language had given way to something uglier, more honest. You people hung in the air. Impossible to misinterpret. The elderly woman gasped. Several other passengers stopped boarding entirely, forming a semicircle around the confrontation. Phones were everywhere now, a dozen digital witnesses recording every word. Maya felt the familiar calculation running through her mind. She could push back, could call Jennifer out directly, could demand to speak to someone higher up the chain. But she'd learned long ago that anger, no matter how justified, would be used against her. The angry black woman stereotype was a trap that had ensnared too many of her sisters, so instead, she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile or a friendly one. It was the smile of someone who knew something you didn't, who held cards you couldn't see. Bradley, Maya said, her voice perfectly calm. I'm going to make this very simple. I want to speak to your station manager, not a gate supervisor. Not a customer service representative. Your station manager. Now, something in her tone made Bradley's hand move toward his radio without conscious thought. That's really not necessary. We can handle this at my level. I disagree. Maya pulled out her phone, opening her email app. I'm also going to need both of your employee ID numbers for my formal complaint. Jennifer, yours is 47,821, correct? I saw it on your badge. Bradley, I'll need yours as well. Jennifer's confidence wavered for just a moment. Formal complaints meant documentation, meant records, meant things that couldn't be swept under the rug as easily as a Friday evening gate dispute. You can file all the complaints you want, Jennifer said, rallying. It won't change the fact that you're not getting on this aircraft. You're disruptive, you're argumentative, and frankly, I don't feel safe having you in my cabin. There it was. The nuclear option. In the aviation industry, if a crew member declares they don't feel safe with a passenger, that passenger doesn't fly. It doesn't matter if the fear is rational, justified, or even real. The crew's word is final. Jennifer knew this. She was wielding it like a weapon. Your cabin? Maya asked softly. Interesting choice of words. I'm the senior cabin director on this flight, Jennifer said, drawing herself up to her full height. The cabin is my responsibility, and I'm exercising my authority to deny you boarding. Bradley's radio crackled again, more insistent this time. Chun, we need a resolution. The captain is asking about the delay. Tell the captain, Jennifer said before Bradley could respond, that we have a disruptive passenger situation being resolved. We'll begin boarding momentarily once she's been escorted from the gate area. Maya looked at the crowd of passengers, at their phones still recording, at the elderly woman who'd spoken up for her, at the man in the suit who'd tried to help. She saw the calculations in their faces, sympathy mixed with relief that it wasn't them, that they could board their flights and fly home while someone else fought this battle. She thought about her daughter Zara. Sarah, who was 15 and had just experienced her own moment of exclusion at her predominantly white private school. Mom, Zara had said last week, tears streaming down her face. Why do they always assume we don't belong? Maya had held her daughter and given her the same speech her own mother had given her. Baby, you belong anywhere you choose to stand. Don't ever let anyone make you smaller than you are. Now, standing in this gate area with her torn boarding pass on the floor, and a flight attendant demanding her removal, Maya decided it was time to stop making herself smaller. No, she said simply. Jennifer blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not leaving. I'm not accepting a rebooking. I'm not taking a voucher. I have a valid ticket for this flight, and I'm going to board it. You're refusing a direct instruction from airline personnel? Jennifer's voice rose. That's a federal offense. Bradley, call security. Now. Bradley hesitated, his finger hovering over his radio. Ma'am, please. Don't make this worse. Just take the voucher and what? Maya asked. Disappear quietly? Make it easy for her? She turned her gaze to Jennifer. That's what you're counting on, isn't it? That I'll be so embarrassed, so worn down, that I'll just leave. That I'll accept being treated as less than human because fighting back is too exhausting, too risky, too likely to confirm every stereotype you already believe about people who look like me. I don't have to listen to this, Jennifer said. But there was something in her voice now, a tremor of uncertainty. Actually, you do, Maya replied. Because I'm not going anywhere. Call security. Call your station manager. Call whoever you need to call. I'll wait. The elderly woman pulled out her phone. I'm calling my pastor and my lawyer. And the news. Jennifer's face had gone from flushed to pale. This wasn't following the script. Passengers were supposed to back down when faced with the combined authority of airline personnel and the implicit threat of law enforcement. They weren't supposed to stand their ground, especially not with this kind of calm certainty. What Jennifer Walsh didn't understand, what she couldn't understand, from her position of casual cruelty and unchallenged authority, was that Maya Thompson had spent 20 years preparing for exactly this kind of moment. Not this situation specifically, but the pattern it represented. The assumption of unworthiness, the casual deployment of power against those deemed powerless. The confidence that comes from never facing consequences for your actions. Jennifer had picked the wrong woman on the wrong day. And in exactly 72 hours, she would understand exactly how wrong. Security arrived in under 3 minutes. 2 officers, both male, both with the weary expressions of people who'd broken up countless airport disputes. The older one, whose name tag read Officer Martinez, assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen this scenario play out 100 times before. What's the problem here? He asked, directing the question to Bradley rather than to Maya or Jennifer. Jennifer jumped in before Bradley could speak. This passenger has been verbally abusive and is refusing to comply with crew instructions. She needs to be removed from the gate area immediately. Officer Martinez turned to Maya. Ma'am, is that accurate? No, Maya said calmly. I purchased a first-class ticket. This flight attendant destroyed it and is now claiming it was fraudulent. I've provided my ID, confirmation number, and digital boarding pass. I haven't raised my voice or threatened anyone. I've simply refused to accept a rebooking I don't want. Martinez looked down at the torn boarding pass on the floor. Who tore that up? The question hung in the air. Jennifer's mouth opened, then closed. Bradley suddenly became very interested in his shoes. I did, Jennifer finally said, lifting her chin. It appeared fraudulent. Appeared fraudulent, Martinez repeated slowly. He pulled out a tablet from his belt. Can I see your confirmation number, ma'am? Maya rattled it off. Martinez typed it into his system, his expression neutral as he read whatever came up on the screen. His eyebrows rose slightly. Ticket was purchased 6 weeks ago. Paid in full. Passenger name matches ID. Seat assignment confirmed. He looked at Jennifer. What made this appear fraudulent? Jennifer's carefully constructed authority was beginning to crack. The quality of the paper. It looked printed at home rather than from an official kiosk. Most people use mobile boarding now, Martinez said dryly. And when they do print at home, it's on regular paper. That's standard. I stand by my assessment, Jennifer insisted. But her voice had lost its certainty. Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, a text from Richard Ashford, Skyward Airline's chief legal counsel and one of the few executives who knew about her Monday appointment. Just heard about an incident at O'Hare Gate 17 that you? Maya typed back quickly. Yes. Handling it. His response was immediate. Need intervention? She paused, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. It would be so easy. One text and Richard could make this entire situation disappear with a phone call. Jennifer would be overruled. Bradley would scramble to apologize. And Maya would board her flight with profuse apologies from everyone involved. But that wasn't the point. Maya had accepted the CEO position at Skyward Airlines with her eyes wide open. She'd reviewed the customer satisfaction surveys, the discrimination complaints, the internal culture assessments. She knew the company had problems that ran deeper than quarterly earnings and operational efficiency. This moment, this exact situation, was a symptom of a disease that had infected the airline from the top down. If she pulled rank now, she'd solve her problem. But she wouldn't solve the problem. No, she typed back. Let it play out. Document everything. Richard's response. Recording the security cameras now. You're braver than I am. The elderly woman who defended Maya earlier pulled out a business card and pressed it into Maya's hand. I'm Dorothy Williams. My son is an attorney. Civil rights cases. You call him when this is over. She lowered her voice. And baby, when you sue them, you make sure they pay. Not for you, for everyone they've done this to who couldn't fight back. Maya looked at the card. Williams and Associates, Chicago. She tucked it into her pocket with a small nod of gratitude. Officer Martinez was reviewing his tablet, scrolling through what Maya assumed was her passenger record. Miss Thompson, according to this, you're a Skyward Elite status holder. 26 flights in the past 12 months, all without incident. He looked at Jennifer. And you thought she was trying to scam her way into first class? Jennifer's face had gone from pale to splotchy red. Elite status doesn't mean. It means she flies with this airline twice a month, Martinez interrupted. It means your system has her credit card, her address, her entire travel history. It means if she was going to commit ticket fraud, she'd have been caught 26 flights ago. He turned to Bradley. Is your station manager on the way? Bradley nodded miserably. She's coming from the main terminal. 5 minutes. Good. Martinez gestured to his partner. Rodriguez. Let's get statements from witnesses while we wait. As Rodriguez began talking to the passengers who'd stopped to watch, Maya saw panic flash across Jennifer's face. Witnesses meant testimony. Testimony meant documentation. Documentation meant this couldn't be quietly buried in the chaos of a busy Friday evening at O'Hare. Maya's phone buzzed again. Another text from Richard. Station manager is Patricia Hoffman. She's solid. Fair. This won't go well for Walsh. But it was the next text that made Maya's breath catch. Board is asking if incident will affect Monday announcement. I told them you have everything under control. Do you? Maya looked at Jennifer, at Bradley, at the crowd of passengers, at the security officers taking statements. She thought about the 47 files on her desk at home. 47 employees whose patterns of behavior had marked them for termination. She thought about the hundreds of other files she'd reviewed. Good people trying to do good work in a system that rewarded cruelty and indifference. She typed back, "Tell the board this is exactly why they hired me. Monday is on schedule." A commotion at the far end of the gate drew everyone's attention. A woman in her 50s, black, with close-cropped silver hair and an air of absolute authority, strode toward them. Her Skyward Airlines credentials hung from a lanyard around her neck, and the look on her face suggested she was not pleased about being summoned. Patricia Hoffman, station manager. The person who could override Jennifer's authority with a single word. But as Patricia approached, Maya saw something in her expression that made her stomach tighten. Recognition. Not recognition of Maya the passenger, but recognition of the situation. The weary acknowledgement of someone who'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. Someone want to tell me why we have a plane full of passengers sitting on the tarmac because of a gate dispute? Patricia's voice cut through the ambient noise like a knife. Jennifer launched into her explanation immediately, her words tumbling over each other in her rush to establish her version of events. Maya listened, cataloging each exaggeration, each distortion, each outright lie. When Jennifer finished, Patricia turned to Maya. "And your version?" Maya kept it simple. "I checked in with a valid first-class ticket. This flight attendant tore it up and told me I belonged in the back. When I refused to accept a rebooking, she called security." "That's all." "That's all?" Jennifer sputtered. "She's been hostile and aggressive. I have witness statements that contradict that," Officer Martinez interjected, holding up his tablet. "Including one from a retired federal judge who says Miss Walsh's behavior was, quote, shockingly discriminatory and unprofessional." Patricia's expression didn't change, but Maya saw something flicker in her eyes. Calculation. This wasn't just a passenger dispute anymore. This was a liability nightmare with witnesses, security footage, and apparently a federal judge willing to testify. "Miss Thompson," Patricia said carefully, "I apologize for this situation. I'm going to personally escort you onto the aircraft and ensure you're properly accommodated in your assigned seat. Jennifer, Bradley, you both come with me. Now." It should have felt like victory. Patricia's tone made it clear that Jennifer and Bradley were in serious trouble. Maya would board her flight, probably with an upgrade in vouchers and profuse apologies. But as they walked toward the jet bridge, Maya caught Jennifer whispering to another flight attendant. "Rich friend pulled strings. That's all this is." She knows somebody. The assumption that Maya's insistence on basic respect could only be explained by connections. By pulling strings, by knowing somebody, it crystallized everything wrong with the culture Maya was inheriting. Jennifer Walsh thought she understood power. She thought she'd just been overruled by a well-connected passenger who'd made the right phone call. She had no idea that she'd just verbally abused, physically intimidated, and racially discriminated against the woman who would be signing her termination papers in 72 hours. As Maya settled into seat 2A, the seat she'd paid for, the seat she'd been told she didn't deserve, she opened her laptop. Her inbox contained an email from Human Resources with the subject line, "Final termination list for Monday, 8 a.m. She opened it, scrolled through the names, found Walsh Jennifer, employee ID 47,821, and next to her name in the notes section, Maya typed, "Gate incident 10/13. O'Hare Terminal 1, Gate 17. Security footage and witness statements attached. Termination confirmed." Jennifer had called this her cabin. In 72 hours, Jennifer wouldn't have a cabin. She wouldn't have a uniform. She wouldn't have the authority to humiliate another passenger ever again. But Maya wasn't done yet. 46 other names sat on that list. 46 other employees whose patterns of discrimination and cruelty had marked them for removal. The plane's engines hummed to life beneath her. In the galley, she could hear Jennifer's voice, brittle and defensive, as she spoke to the other flight attendants. Maya caught fragments. "Ridiculous. Can't believe Hoffman took her side. Political correctness gone crazy. Maya closed her laptop and pulled out her phone. One more text to Richard. Add Bradley Chun to Monday's list. Gate supervisor. Enabled the situation instead of de-escalating it. His response came immediately. Consider it done. The board will want a full report Monday morning. You ready to explain why your first act as CEO is firing 47 people? Maya smiled, the expression holding no warmth. She typed, First act is establishing that discrimination has consequences. Second act is rebuilding a culture where this never happens again. Board hired me to fix this airline. That's exactly what I'm going to do. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Maya watched Chicago's lights blur past the window. Somewhere in this city, Richard was downloading security footage that would document every moment of Jennifer Walsh's casual cruelty. Somewhere in the Skyward Airlines headquarters, her office was being prepared, her nameplate being installed, her authority being established. Monday morning would bring press releases and conference calls, and the weight of leading a major airline through turbulent times. But Monday morning would also bring accountability. Jennifer Walsh had torn up a boarding pass and told a woman she belonged in the back. Maya Thompson was about to tear up 47 careers and rebuild an airline from the ground up. The only question was whether Jennifer would understand, in those final moments before her termination, exactly who she'd chosen to humiliate. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable cold. Maya stood outside the Skyward Airlines headquarters at 6:47 a.m., coffee in hand, watching early shift employees stream through the glass doors. None of them looked at her twice. Just another professional in a dark suit, arriving early for another Monday. Richard Ashford met her in the lobby, his expression carefully neutral for the security cameras. Morning. Everything's set up in the executive conference room. Board members are on standby for the 9 o'clock call. And the termination notices? Has them ready. All 47. He handed her a tablet. I took the liberty of reorganizing your list. Walsh is last. Maya raised an eyebrow. Why last? Because when the others see her walked out, they'll understand that seniority doesn't protect discrimination. That being senior cabin director doesn't put you above consequences. Richard's voice was quiet but firm. You wanted to send a message. This sends it. At 7:58 a.m., Maya Thompson walked into the executive conference room where Skyward Airlines' leadership team had gathered for what they'd been told was a routine Monday briefing. The room fell silent as she entered. Good morning, she said, taking her place at the head of the table. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Maya Thompson, and as of 8 o'clock this morning, I'm your new CEO. The press release hit inboxes at exactly 8 a.m. Within minutes, Maya's phone began buzzing with messages from industry contacts, former colleagues, reporters requesting interviews. She ignored them all. Over the next several hours, Maya continued, her voice carrying the authority of her new position. Human Resources will be conducting 47 terminations. These are not budget cuts. These are not restructuring eliminations. These are terminations for cause, based on documented patterns of discriminatory behavior, customer mistreatment, and violations of company policy. The color drained from several faces around the table. Patricia Hoffman, who'd earned her station manager position through competence rather than connections, met Maya's eyes and gave a small nod of approval. Some of you may wonder why my first act as CEO is to fire nearly 50 employees. Maya pulled up a presentation on the main screen. Let me show you why. The first slide displayed customer satisfaction scores. Skyward ranked 47th out of 50 major carriers. The second showed discrimination complaints over 300 in the past 18 months alone. The third showed the financial impact: millions in settlements, lost business, and damaged reputation. This ends today, Maya said simply. At Gate 17 in O'Hare, Jennifer Walsh was preparing for the morning's first departure to Miami. She'd spent the weekend fuming about Friday's incident, crafting increasingly elaborate complaints about Maya Thompson to anyone who would listen. She'd filed a counter-complaint, claiming the passenger had been threatening and abusive. Her phone buzzed with a text from a friend in corporate. Did you see the announcement? New CEO started today. Jennifer barely glanced at it. She was more concerned with the message from HR, Report to Station Manager Hoffman's office immediately upon arrival. Probably about that incident Friday, she muttered to her colleague. I'm filing a grievance. That woman had connections and Hoffman caved to pressure. It's not right. Patricia Hoffman's office at O'Hare was small but efficient, with windows overlooking the terminal. When Jennifer arrived at 8:47 a.m., she found Patricia behind her desk with someone from corporate HR on a video call. Jennifer, have a seat, Patricia said, her tone carefully neutral. I want to start by saying that Passenger Friday was completely out of line, Jennifer began, launching into her prepared defense. I followed protocol exactly. If anything, I should be commended for… Jennifer. Patricia's voice cut through the monologue like a blade. You need to stop talking and listen very carefully. Something in Patricia's expression made Jennifer's rehearsed speech die in her throat. The HR representative on the screen spoke. Miss Walsh, effective immediately. Your employment with Skyward Airlines is terminated for cause. You violated company policy regarding passenger treatment. You destroyed airline property without justification, and you engaged in discriminatory behavior toward a ticketed passenger? What? No, that's Jennifer's voice rose. That passenger was the problem. She was aggressive. We have security footage, Patricia interrupted, turning her monitor so Jennifer could see. The video played in silence, Jennifer tearing the boarding pass. Jennifer's sneer, Jennifer's body language radiating contempt. The audio came next. Crystal clear. You belong in the back? Jennifer's face went from red to white. That's out of context. You can't. We also have statements from 7 witnesses, including a retired federal judge, the HR representative continued. We have your employment history showing 7 prior complaints of discriminatory behavior with no corrective action taken. And we have the personal complaint filed by the passenger herself. Filed by? Jennifer laughed, the sound brittle. She's just some entitled woman who knows how to work the system. This is ridiculous. I've been with this airline for 12 years. Patricia slid a folder across the desk. The passenger you humiliated Friday evening is Maya Thompson. As of 8 o'clock this morning, she's the CEO of Skyward Airlines. The words landed like physical blows. Jennifer stared at the folder, at the press release inside with Maya's photo, at the reality of what she'd done crystallizing with horrifying clarity. That's not possible. Jennifer's hands trembled as she picked up the press release. Maya's credentials stared back at her former coup of Horizon Aviation, Harvard MBA, 20 years of executive experience. You tore up your CEO's boarding pass, Patricia said quietly, and told her she belonged in the back. On camera, with witnesses. 3 days before she took control of this company. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Her 12-year career, her seniority, her authority, all of it evaporating in real time as she understood the magnitude of her mistake. I didn't know, she whispered. How was I supposed to know? You weren't supposed to treat anyone that way, Patricia replied, CEO or not. That's the point. The HR representative continued with the mechanical details of termination final paycheck, COBRA information, return of company property. Jennifer heard none of it. She was calculating her mortgage payment, her car loan, her credit card debt, 12 years of employment, gone. Her reputation in the industry destroyed. All because she'd assumed a black woman couldn't possibly belong in first class. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, Patricia said. Your access credentials have been deactivated. You're no longer permitted in secure areas of the airport. Please, Jennifer said, and the word came out broken. I made a mistake. I'll apologize. I'll do sensitivity training. You had 12 years to choose sensitivity, Patricia interrupted. You had 7 complaints to learn from. You had dozens of opportunities to treat passengers with basic human dignity. You chose cruelty instead. Now you face the consequences. As security escorted Jennifer through the terminal, she saw other Skyward employees watching. Some looked confused, others looked relieved. A few looked terrified, perhaps recognizing their own behavior in her downfall. At headquarters in Chicago, Maya was conducting her first executive meeting as CEO. On the screen behind her, a live dashboard tracked the 47 terminations happening simultaneously across the company's network. "Some of you are probably thinking this is harsh," Maya said, looking around the conference room. "That 47 people is too many. That we should have used progressive discipline, retraining, second chances." She clicked to the next slide, a compilation of customer testimonials, all describing discrimination, all detailing humiliation, all expressing that they never fly skyward again. "Here's what I think is harsh," Maya continued, her voice steady but carrying an edge. "A single mother being removed from a flight because a gate agent didn't believe she could afford her ticket. A disabled veteran being mocked by flight attendants. A Muslim woman being subjected to random additional screening on 17 consecutive flights. That's harsh." She pulled up another slide showing financial data. "And here's what's expensive: 347 discrimination complaints in 18 months, 89 lawsuits settled or in progress. A customer satisfaction rating that's destroyed our market share. We're bleeding passengers and revenue because people don't trust us to treat them with basic human dignity." Richard leaned forward. "The question the board will ask is whether this solves the problem or just creates new ones." "It solves nothing by itself," Maya acknowledged. "Firing 47 people is just removing the most visible symptoms of a cultural disease. The real work starts tomorrow, retraining every employee, rebuilding trust with customers, creating accountability systems that prevent this from happening again." She closed her laptop and looked around the table. "But it starts by establishing that discrimination has consequences. That you can't hide behind seniority or union protections or the assumption that no one will care enough to hold you accountable. As of today, I care. And I'm the one who signs the checks." By noon, news of the mass terminations had spread through Skyward's network. Employee break rooms buzzed with speculation and fear. Some called it an overreaction. Others called it long overdue. If you've ever wondered whether individual actions actually have consequences in corporate America, whether speaking up against injustice actually matters, remember this moment. Sometimes it takes someone with power choosing to use that power for something other than protecting the status quo. At 2:37 p.m., Maya received an email from Dorothy Williams, the elderly woman who defended her at the gate. "Saw the news about the new Skyward CEO. Recognized your photo immediately. My church group wanted you to know all 47 of us just booked our annual retreat flights with Skyward. We believe in supporting leaders who stand for what's right. God bless you, baby." Maya smiled and typed back a response. Then she pulled up the video from Gate 17 one more time, watching Jennifer sneer. Hearing those words, "You belong in the back." "No," Maya said quietly to the empty office. "I belong exactly where I choose to stand. And so does everyone else." 6 months later, Maya stood in the same Chicago headquarters building, but everything had changed. The quarterly earnings report displayed on the conference room screen told a story that even the most skeptical board members couldn't dismiss. Customer satisfaction scores had jumped from 47th to 19th among major carriers. Discrimination complaints had dropped by 73%. Most remarkably, revenue was up 14%. Passengers were choosing Skyward again, and they were telling their friends why. "The market responded exactly as we predicted," Maya told the board. "When you treat people with dignity, they reward you with loyalty. It's not complicated, but the numbers only told part of the story." Patricia Hoffman had been promoted to Vice President of Ground Operations, tasked with implementing Maya's cultural reforms across all Skyward facilities. The changes were comprehensive and uncompromising mandatory bias training for all employees, body cameras for security interactions, a 3-person verification system before any passenger could be denied boarding, and an independent review board to investigate discrimination complaints. "We've processed 47 new hires to replace the terminated employees," Patricia reported during the meeting. Every single one went through enhanced screening that included scenario-based testing for bias. "We're not just filling positions. We're building a different kind of team." Officer Martinez, the security guard who'd taken witness statements at Gate 17, had been hired as Skyward's new Director of Security and Passenger Safety. His first initiative was retraining every security contractor who worked at Skyward Gates. "I've been in airport security for 20 years, Martinez told Maya during his first week. "I've seen what you saw 1,000 times. The difference is you had the power to do something about it. Thank you for using it." Bradley Chen was no longer with the company. His termination had been quieter than Jennifer's, but the message was clear: standing by while discrimination happened was as unacceptable as committing it yourself. Maya had heard through industry channels that he'd taken a position with a regional carrier at a significantly lower salary. She felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a grim recognition that leadership required courage, and courage required consequences for its absence. Jennifer Walsh's fate had been far more public and far more devastating. Within days of her termination, her story had gone viral. Someone had leaked the Gate 17 security footage, and "You belong in the back" became a hashtag, a meme, a cultural touchstone for casual racism in corporate America. Every major airline added her name to their do not hire databases. Her LinkedIn profile, once showcasing 12 years of aviation experience, had been deleted. Her Twitter account, where she'd once complained about difficult passengers, had been suspended after thousands of comments flooded in. Maya had received a letter from Jennifer 3 months after the terminations. It arrived at corporate headquarters, forwarded through legal channels. Maya had debated whether to open it. Finally, late one evening in her office, she did. The letter was 7 pages long. It started with excuses, then moved to anger, then finally, on page 5, arrived at something that might have been genuine remorse. "I keep replaying that moment," Jennifer had written. "The look on your face when I tore up your boarding pass. I saw a person. I know I did. But I chose to see a problem instead. I chose to see a threat. I chose to exercise power I shouldn't have had in the first place. I've lost everything, my career, my home, my reputation. But the worst part is knowing I deserved it. I humiliated you because I could. Because I'd done it before and never faced consequences. You were just the first person who could fight back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I should have understood. Then, that my uniform didn't give me the right to decide who belonged where. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter. But I'm sorry." Maya had filed the letter away without responding. Forgiveness wasn't hers to grant or withhold. Jennifer would have to live with what she'd done, would have to rebuild her life with the knowledge that her cruelty had finally met its match. That was consequence enough. But Maya's reforms extended beyond punishment. She'd established the Skyward Equity Initiative, a program that recruited aviation professionals from underrepresented communities and provided training, mentorship, and clear advancement pathways. The first cohort of 23 participants had just completed their initial training, and 5 were already being fast-tracked to management positions. "My daughter wants to be a pilot," Dorothy Williams had told Maya when she visited the training facility for its opening. "She's 15, and until she saw you on the news, she didn't think girls who looked like her could run airlines. Now she knows different. That's worth more than you know." The moment that brought Maya the most satisfaction came 4 months into her tenure. She was boarding a Skyward flight to Los Angeles for a meeting with the FAA when the gate agent, a young black man in his 20s, recognized her. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice carrying pride and something deeper: relief, maybe, or validation. "It's an honor to serve you today. Your seat in first class is ready whenever you'd like to board." "Thank you," Maya said, then paused. "What's your name?" "Marcus, ma'am." "Marcus Johnson. How long have you been with Skyward, Marcus?" 3 months. "I'm one of the new hires after." He trailed off, unsure if he should mention the terminations. "After we cleaned house," Maya finished for him. "How's it been?" Marcus glanced around, then leaned in slightly. "Honestly, it's been incredible. I worked for another airline before this, and every day was a battle. Passengers assuming I didn't know what I was doing, coworkers making comments, management that didn't care. Here, it's different. People treat each other with respect because they know there are consequences if they don't. It sounds simple, but it changes everything." Maya boarded that flight and settled into seat 2 of the same seat number she'd been denied 6 months earlier, though on a different aircraft, a different route. As the plane taxied toward the runway, she pulled out her tablet and reviewed the agenda for her meeting with the FAA. Skyward's transformation had caught the attention of federal regulators, who were considering adopting some of Maya's policies as industry-wide standards. Other airlines were watching too, some dismissing her approach as too aggressive, others quietly implementing similar reforms after their own discrimination scandals came to light. The flight attendant, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, approached with a warm smile. "Miss Thompson, can I get you anything before we take off?" "Just water, thank you." As the attendant walked away, Maya caught herself scanning her name tag, checking her demeanor, looking for signs of the casual cruelty that had once been Skyward's signature. Old habits died hard. But she saw nothing except professional courtesy, nothing except an employee who understood that every passenger deserved the same respect, regardless of where they sat or what they looked like. The plane lifted into the afternoon sky, Chicago's sprawling landscape giving way to clouds and blue sky. Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here, not just the physical journey from Gate 17 to the CEO's office, but the longer journey through a career spent proving she belonged in rooms where people assumed she didn't. She thought about her daughter Zara, who'd cried with pride when Maya's appointment was announced. "Mom, you didn't just win," Zara had said. "You changed the whole game." That was the point, Maya reflected. Revenge would have been satisfying for a moment. Getting Jennifer Walsh fired, watching her suffer, enjoying her downfall, that would have been revenge. But changing the system that allowed people like Jennifer to thrive unchecked for 12 years? That was justice. Justice meant that the next black woman boarding a Skyward flight wouldn't face what Maya had faced. It meant that Marcus Johnson could come to work without armor. It meant that passengers could fly without wondering if the color of their skin would determine the quality of their service. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Richard Ashford. "Board just approved your 5-year culture transformation budget. Full funding. No restrictions." They finally get it. She smiled and looked out the window. Somewhere far below, people were boarding planes, checking into hotels, walking into stores and restaurants and office buildings. Some of them would face the casual cruelty of bias. Some would shrink from it. Some would fight it. Some would have the power to change it. Maya had learned something profound in the 6 months since Gate 17. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's construction, building something better. Creating a world where the next person doesn't have to fight the same battle. Jennifer Walsh had tried to put Maya in the back of the plane. Instead, Maya had taken control of the entire airline and used that power to ensure no one else would be told where they belonged based on the color of their skin. That wasn't revenge. That was revolution. As the flight leveled off at cruising altitude, the attendant returned with Maya's water. "Ms. Thompson, I just wanted to say thank you for everything you're doing. My sister is in your new training program. She's wanted to work in aviation her whole life, but she never thought it was possible. You made it possible." Maya took the water and met the attendant's eyes. "What's possible," she said quietly, "is whatever we decide to build. Tell your sister I'm looking forward to working with her." The attendant walked away, and Maya returned to her work. There were still 46 other names on that termination list, 46 other stories of accountability delivered. There were hundreds more employees being retrained, thousands of policies being rewritten, an entire company culture being rebuilt from the ground up. It was exhausting work. It was essential work. And Maya Thompson was exactly where she belonged in the captain's chair, steering a major airline toward a future where dignity wasn't a privilege but a guarantee. Jennifer Walsh had torn up a boarding pass and destroyed her own career in the process. Maya Thompson had taken that moment of humiliation and transformed it into an industry-changing mandate for respect. The choice had always been clear. Some people use power to diminish others. Some use it to elevate everyone. Maya had chosen elevation. And the sky, it turned out, was exactly where she belonged.